Hello, everyone. This is Webinar Wednesday. I so love being able to do these sessions because not only can we broadcast them so people can access this from anywhere, this is also a great opportunity for me to teach and an opportunity for you to ask questions. So if you're watching this live as one of our broadcasts, please feel free and feel comfortable to post a question. I will make sure I can address it during the call as much as I can. If I can't, I'll follow up with you afterwards for sure. But we definitely want to make sure this is a fun and an interactive session, especially based on the topic that we're covering today. One of the things that's really exciting about today's topic is that idea that we need courage to do a lot of the things that we have to do in our business, not just in sales. In reality, we really need this in so many ways. For many of us as business owners, many of us as entrepreneurs, many of us who are really just getting started or being solopreneurs, what you may feel like is that you're constantly being challenged to learn something new. You're constantly being pushed to try something new. You're really in this space where you're growing and maybe feeling like a rubber band at times. And because of that challenge, it can feel a little bit stressful. It can feel like, the anxiety can build up because every time you turn around, there's something new you have to do or something new that you have to learn. And what I want today to kind of talk about is some of that stress and anxiety you're feeling, especially when we talk about the sales process. Because for many of us, it's not only how we feel about sales itself. Sometimes it's the baggage that we bring from a previous sales experience that we've had. Someone has maybe tried to sell us and it didn't go well. So, what can happen is we can shy away from those moments. We can be so concerned that we're going to be those same people that what happens is we don't ask people to buy our products and services. We forget to create these environments and atmospheres so that people feel comfortable to buy. And one of the key ways to make that happen is to also make yourself comfortable in the process. So, I want to talk today about some of the tools, some of the techniques, some of the things that you can do to make sure that you're comfortable and confident and can tap into that courage, which will also create a great environment for your customers. Now, for some of you, maybe it's the first time you're joining one of our webinars, just want to say hello as your presenter, Stephanie Red Cross West. I'm really here to answer questions. I'm just passionate about marketing, business. I spent years in corporate America. And even with me starting this company back in 2009, I can't believe it's been so long. I've learned a couple of things. I've even stumbled a couple of times. I've even had setbacks. It's really a part of running a business. And what I hope to do today is share some of the things I've learned, some of the things that we've taught our clients, and also some of the things that we've seen as successful out there. So I often try to pull from real life experiences with my clients and even through our trials and tribulations. But I also like to share some of that optimism about these processes because sometimes it's easy for our feelings to get in the way and we feel so kind of maybe negative about things or down about things. And one thing I want you to make sure you walk away with today is feeling a little bit inspired about maybe how you'll approach that next sales call or that next launch. Now, before we dive into tips, before we dive into ideas or recommendations, I want to do a little bit of grounding. I want to make sure that we kind of talk about the sales and marketing kind of foundation. And even at this is a simplified look at it. But I bring this up because for a lot of people, when they think about their marketing, even sometimes if they're willing to say their sales and marketing, they kind of get stuck in these outer two realms of this flow. And what I mean by that is when your customer is making a decision to buy, if a customer is trying to decide if they're going to purchase something, often there's activity that happens way before they're making that final decision. Often they have to become aware of your product and service. They have to become aware of their needs sometimes. Sometimes people have a need and they just feel like it's not met yet. So they're in that first box, this first blue box, all the way to the left-hand side, where you as a business, you're trying to attract them. You're trying to identify who are your prospects, who are people that would potentially buy from you. And therefore, there's a level of marketing that happens there that's different than the marketing that happens in the sales process. or it's different than happens when you're trying to get someone to actually purchase. And I bring that up because I want to make sure that when you're building out your marketing process, you're not kind of smushing or condensing this process together. You're not trying to identify your prospects, nurture and build connections, and convert them all with the same marketing materials. Or you're not spending your time in these kind of outer two boxes, meaning you're giving, giving, giving to the community. You're trying to do a lot of brand awareness and saying, hey, this is my brand, this is my business. But what you don't ever get to is that connecting with people, nurturing them, helping them understand how your product can be a solution, and then ultimately spending the right amount of time with them so that you can actually convert them into customers. So I just wanted to ground us a little bit there because it's so important that we see this as a step in the sales process and we don't forget the attention that it needs for it to be successful. All right. Now, as we talk about that grounding, as we talk about, okay, that's the flow, Stephanie, I get it. But many of you may still be saying, I still have a hard time selling. And one thing I want to address, especially when we think about some of that anxiety that you might be feeling, is that when you are selling, when you are trying to get someone to sign up for your product or service, it's not simply that you're selling. What happens is the sales process is what opens up the door so you can actually help people. So, one thing I want you to start saying to yourself when you feel a little bit of that anxiety, when you start to feel, oh, I got a discovery call today, how do I prepare myself? I want you to remind yourself that this sales call or this opportunity that you have, that proposal you're sending out, is really an opportunity for you to actually help that person on the other end. And when you focus on the helping as opposed to the sales side of it, and what I mean by that is, am I being too pushy? Should I ask? I don't know if they want to buy. I don't know what to say. It diverts your attention from maybe some of those, or maybe some of that baggage that you might be bringing in, and really puts you focused on the idea that if I can get someone to say yes, then I can help them achieve their goal. If I can get them to say yes, I can help them move forward. If I can get them to say yes, I could be that solution that they've been searching for and wanting for a long time to help them get where they wanted to be and to ultimately get results. So I just want to make sure we talk a little bit about that mindset piece because it's so important when you go into the sales process that you're not bogged down by just how you feel about that process, that you remember the piece of that process is to make sure that you can ultimately help the customers that you have. Now, I say that because I want you to think of the sales process as a personal process. I want you to not see it as this mechanical thing that you do. I don't want you to see it as, okay, well, this is what I've seen people do in sales. This is what a salesperson looks like. I don't want you to bring too many of those stereotypes to the party because the world has changed when it comes to sales. People have different expectations. And I really feel like for many of us who have these passion-based businesses, that have businesses that are driven by purpose, that are businesses that are truly trying to help people get a transformation, that there's an opportunity to bring much more of a personal touch to your sales process. And by bringing in some of that personalized kind of approach, I find it makes the sales process a little bit easier, a lot less, feeling maybe nervous about it because there's tools and tech that you can use to help you through that process. And the key here is we all have a brand. We have a style. We have a way we want to deliver our information. And what I don't want you to do is make your sales process different than the way that you treat your customers and different from the way that you support people. I don't want you to feel like my sales process has to be this, but once that happens, I turn into this person. The idea is you can be personable, you can connect with people, you can create an environment for you to really make sure that people get to know you as your business, as your brand, or individuals within your team that are maybe helping you facilitate this. All right. So When you're thinking about the sales process, when you're thinking about getting people to buy, one thing I want you to start thinking about is, what do you want to incorporate into your sales process? How do you want to drive sales? Now, I know there's a mix of people on the call here. We have people who are doing coaching, we have some people who are doing courses, we have some people who are maybe doing retail. So if you're on more that transactional side, you're going to have a slightly different sales process than maybe someone who's a little bit more on the proposal side, or someone who's doing something like coaching and you're going to have like a package. The reason being is your sales structure or sales process may have to support, one to many, meaning I need to be able to get in front of a lot of customers because I have to have a lot of people signed up for my course or program. Or on the coaching or on the kind of more one-to-one proposal side, the idea is that you may only be sending out 5, 10 proposals this month, and you're hoping, 3 or 4 of them turn into customers. So therefore, your process will feel a little bit different. But the structure behind it or the approach behind it can be very similar. So we're going to talk about some of those similarities. So one thing I want you to do, as far as your first step into getting more and more comfortable about the sales process, is make sure you have something in your kind of approach that helps break down roadblocks and barriers. I think often we forget when it comes to sales that the reason people aren't buying sometimes is because they have too many questions still. They're just not comfortable yet. They're not really at a point where they feel like they can confidently buy. So therefore, when you think about your sales process, when you think about what you do to sell your products and services, I want you to think about, what tools do you use to help remove those roadblocks and build a level of brand loyalty. My 3 favorite are live Q&As, and I love live Q&As, especially for anyone who sells courses, especially for anyone who does retail, or anyone who's doing something on that larger transactional level. The reason being is, what's great about live Q&As, and we'll talk about it even more in detail later, is that live Q&As gives you an opportunity to even showcase the product or service, especially if you have an online course. You can actually do a screen share and show them the course, and show them inside the course, and show them where the videos are, the PDF downloads, or the notes, and just give people a good insider's view that often can be very difficult to do in an email. Can be a little bit difficult to do in a post, unless it's maybe a video. And what I like about live Q&A sessions is live Q&A sessions can be very casual. They can be an opportunity for people to just ask questions, but you'll also have a whole group of people who will join those sessions, not answer a question, not ask a question, but still sign up because they get the benefit of you answering other people's questions. So think about, when you are doing a next launch, when you're doing a next sale, think about what can you do, or how can you create these Q&A opportunities. Now, those Q&A opportunities can be in your entire social media platform. So you could say, let me see if I can get this wide reach. Or the live Q&A could be just for people on your email list. You can invite them to a Zoom session, they get on the Zoom session, and then you can talk about your products or services. I think often we always think about like live broadcasting to the world because we're like, we got to reach as many people to drive sales. But sometimes it's so important that the people that have taken that step to get on your email list, the people that have taken the step to get to know you, get a little bit of special treatment. So it's a great opportunity to do even some specific calls for them and make sure they have their questions answered for any new products or services or variations, or maybe even bundles that you're offering. The other one is a discovery call. Absolutely love a discovery call. That's very different than a free consult. A discovery call is much more, or a breakthrough call is much more designed to talk about what someone's current challenge is and how you can help them. A free consult is literally you just doing a consult. So I prefer for people to have discovery calls or breakthrough calls, especially anyone who's on my coaching side, anyone who's doing proposals, because this is a great way for you to talk about the challenges that someone's having. I'm going to break down a little bit more detail how to have a very successful discovery call in a couple of slides. But I want to make sure that for any of you who are not incorporating that in your sales process, this is a great time for you to add it. And then promo videos. Really, really, really starting to get more and more into promo videos. And when I talk about promo videos, I mean like 60-second videos. But what's great about these videos is these can be videos that you put together to kind of feature what you're doing, what you're working on. It's gotten much easier to get someone to do a lot of video editing. And one of the things that we've been doing lately is working on like 60-second video series. So I'll show you some examples of things that we've been starting to play around with and starting to test, so that we could create our own kind of promotional video content. But I definitely think whether you're on the retail side, transactional side, or on my coaching, you know what I mean, small volume side, promo videos work as well. So let me know, for any of my coaches or anyone who's watching, if you have a question about that, let me know because I will answer it. All right. So we talked a little bit about discovery calls. I talked about some of those things. Now, for some of you, you may be like, well, Steph, I already know about that. What else can I do? How else can I personalize this process? How can I feel more confident in this process? And one thing I love to do is to use video to help with proposals, especially if you're going to be reaching out to maybe individuals in corporations or businesses, or you're working with somebody where you may be sending them an extensive proposal, maybe a significant size proposal, or maybe even you're sending them a proposal that has two options in it. Often, what we do is we put together that PDF, we email it out with a great email, and then we kind of wait to see what they think, what if they're willing to move forward. And what I find is one way to enhance that process and also feel more confident is, instead of having to do the follow-ups in email, instead of trying to get someone on a call to ask them, are you ready to move forward with a proposal? I love to send videos at times. And the tool I use is I use Loom to do this. You can either use Loom to record them and you can download them, put them on your website, or you can use Loom to distribute the video as well, just depending on, what experience you want to have for your customer. But what I love to do is create a video that explains a proposal. It's the first time I'm sending out a proposal, especially if it's a big proposal, especially if it's a partnership or something like that. And what I'll do is I'll say, hey, and I'll do it where you see how there's like a little circle around me in the image there on the screen. What that is me kind of in the screen, and then there's an item behind me. So what it allows me to do is pull up the proposal on the screen. I can be big in the middle and the beginning, and normally I do that to just say hello. And then I'll shrink down that video, or I'll just move it to the side. And then I almost walk through the proposal. I explain to people, hey, this is what I sent over to you. There's actually two options here. I wanted to make sure you're aware that there's two options, and I want to give you the opportunity to choose between option one and option two. And then what happens is I'm taking a proposal that can often feel a little one-dimensional when you send a PDF, and I'm giving it more dimension by sending a video that walks and explains someone through it, especially if you feel a little bit more uncomfortable on these kind of calls. You can do it in video format. Now, I don't want to make it sound like you can only do it in video and you don't have to get on phone calls to sell. You definitely still have to get on a phone call. But I find doing these videos is a great way to get people comfortable with a proposal, so that when you get on a call with them, you can have a not only more productive call, but some of the things that maybe you're feeling a little uncomfortable about saying on a call live, you could address in a video. Now, it can also happen at different stages. You can use it after you send a proposal. A few days later, if you haven't heard, you can say, hey, just wanted to drop you a quick video. Let me know if you have any feedback or if you have any questions. I'd love to set up a meeting. That's another way to use videos. Or one of my favorite ways, and this has been something that's helped us really with a lot of our bigger scale proposals, is when people ask me a lot of questions like, why this price? Why this option? Could we do this instead of this? Can we do a pilot and then roll it out? Instead of writing an extensive email explaining it, often I will create a video and answer their questions on video. What happens is they get to see me again. They get a taste of personality, your excitement level. All of that can come across in a video, and it's a great way to do it. Now, I know not everyone loves video. Not everyone's comfortable in video, but I recommend this because it's such a wonderful way to make the sales process feel more personal. And it's also a wonderful way For the sales process to come alive, especially when you're asking for those big numbers, and at times it can feel a little bit nerve wracking. All right. The other recommendation I'm going to have is using one-on-ones. Now, we talked about the concept of a discovery call, but I want to take that one step further. For a lot of people, when we think about having calls with people, we often think about the idea that, well, I see how it can work for a coach, but on the transactional side, or if I'm doing a course, I don't think I can meet with people one on one or meet with everyone on one because I want, 500, 1,000 people to sign up. And I get that. So if you're looking for those big numbers, you can still use the one on one concept or the idea of setting up group sessions. What's great is many of the tools that do your scheduling, something like Calendly as an example, will not only allow you to schedule one on one calls, but it will allow you to have a certain date and multiple people can sign up to attend the same session. So say you were going to host maybe 3 Q&A sessions and people could go into something like Calendly and pick Q&A session 1, 2, or 3. And what I love to do this for is not necessarily you're going to meet with everyone on your list, not necessarily going to meet with all of your customers, especially if you're trying to drive volume. You need 50 people to sign up. You need 100 people to sign up. You can't meet with all of those people sometimes, depending on how quickly or when your last day to sign up is. But if you had a group session and people could go into different time slots, they could attend. The other thing is, I love to use this as an early adopter exclusive access. So, what we'll say is, while you want to get 200 people to sign up, you can use this as a tool to get those first 20. Because I think one thing that happens in the sales process, the launch process, the process when we're putting out a new product or service, especially on my more transactional side of the business, is a lot of people wait to the end to sign up. A lot of times we launch and we're just waiting and we're feeling like nervous the whole time. Are they going to sign up? So by offering a group one-on-one or a group session to answer questions and only offering it for 2 days, 3 days in the early part of the launch timeline is a great way to meet with some people and also create kind of a little bit of an opportunity or exclusivity where if people act fast, they can get their questions answered by you. But that way you don't have to open it up to everyone and feel like, oh my goodness, I can't manage 500 calls. Does that make sense to everybody? Does that sound reasonable? Okay. All right, perfect. The other thing to think about here is that one-on-ones can happen before and after proposals. Often we talk to people before, we do discovery calls before, but we don't always think about doing follow-up calls. One thing that we've started to do now is ask people after we send out a proposal, we ask them, would you like to have a follow-up meeting to walk through the proposal? Because what happens is when a person's on a call, they've got an idea in their head. You've told them about the product and service, and they said, okay, send me a proposal. But afterwards, something comes up, something happens. And to make sure that person has gotten into that proposal, has spent the time by booking another session afterwards. So let me give you an example. We're having a discovery call. Let's say I'm having a discovery call with someone on Thursday. At the end of that call, if they say, I'm still trying to decide, Stephanie, can you send me a brochure? Can you send me some pricing? Can you send me some information? I go, great. I'll send that over to you by Friday. They say, wonderful. And I say, you know what? What if we set up a second call so we can walk through that proposal? What if we regroup on Tuesday after you've had a couple of days to look at the proposal? And by booking that follow-up call during the initial discovery call, it gives you a loop back and an opportunity to get back on the call with that person without having to trade emails and, scheduling links back and forth. But it also makes your sales process feel a little bit more complete. Because what you're doing now is saying, I'm going to send you what you need, and then I'm going to make sure that I have time set aside, and it'll make most people look at that proposal fairly quickly if they know they're going to meet with you again on Tuesday for them to come back and review and talk about it. And this is a part of that closing the deal process. This is what helps you close the deal by making sure that you book time while you have them on the call for your next call and you send them any information you need in between. So that would be my biggest recommendation there. Okay. Next thing is, let's talk about these videos. Now, I have some promo videos that we're working on, but they're not final yet, so I couldn't show you the promo videos. But I thought it would be kind of interesting to show you some of the videos that we're starting to use that are even promotions for things like webinars. So like for this webinar, we actually have been playing around with some different techniques for promo videos. And as you can see, we have some that are in the kind of square version. We have some that are in that portrait vertical version. And one thing I love being able to do about this, so one thing that I love about this approach is that often when people think about videos for promotions, they think it has to be a physical product. Now, yes, it works really well if you're a physical product. You're selling vegan shoes, vegan purse, vegan makeup. It's great to show people, have a quick video talking about the latest product. But you can also do it for service-based businesses. You can talk about the transformation. You can talk about the challenge. You can even give a tip in that video. And one thing I'm going to recommend is if you're comfortable with these videos, is create a series of them. Because remember what we talked about earlier, that people have to become like aware or attracted to your business. Then people have to be nurtured and then they sell. Often, if you create a series of videos, you can create a video that's for awareness, create a video that's for nurturing, and then create a video that's for sales. And what happens is instead of you trying to jam all of that into one video, you can break it up and the video can be more focused. So video number one can be just introducing them to the idea. The video number one could be talking about how you help people and how you get transformations. Where video number two can be an example of it, or maybe a tip, or maybe you kind of showcasing what you do, whether it's even you doing a little bit of a cooking video, because maybe you do cooking classes as an example. And maybe this is you showing a tip in the kitchen that you normally include in your cooking classes. Then by video three, you'll be talking about the class that you have and incorporating all that information together. You'll say, we normally do tips and advice, and I've done some great videos on that. I'll link to them in the description, so that way people can link back to those other videos. But this time you can have a video that's very specific about why they should sign up. You can actually say, hey, this course or this program is for people who, want to cook but hate cooking, as an example. And therefore, it can be clear in the video and it can be clear how you can help them. And your marketing now spans across the information that people need to make a decision. Does that make sense to everybody? What do you guys think? Okay, perfecto. The other thing we want to talk about is structure when it comes to sales. What happens for many of us is we kind of do it a little bit on the fly. And some of this is because we're thinking that, especially sometimes when we're doing coaching, we're thinking that, hey, this is more of a, let me see what they want, and then I'll create packages and I'll create offers. While you can do a lot of customized proposals, I recommend for a lot of people is to start with some basic packages. What are your packages that you can offer? And what I really want you to do is I want you to have an entry-level package, and then I want you to have a package that makes you a little bit uncomfortable to offer. The reason I say a little bit uncomfortable to offer it is most of us struggle with asking for a high value or high ticket item, especially when you think about coaching. So if you have a package that's a $500 package, I definitely want you to have a $3,000 package too. And the reason being is there's individuals who want more and they're willing to pay for more. And I don't want you to mix up those two people because they're different people. Some people have a different budget and a different expectation. They're like, I just want you to help me get started because I can take it and run from there. Where other people are like, I really want you to meet with me pretty frequently as far as maybe coaching. Same thing can happen with courses. You can have a higher end course or what they call a cohort course, which is done live, where everyone's attending live and attending and seeing all the materials. And then after you do a live cohort course, which might be a $1,000 course, might be a $2,000 course, you can repackage that course and then turn it into a at your own pace course at a lower price point. And the reason I'm talking about this as far as the offer is where most people struggle with sales is their offer and their sales processes don't link. So what I want you to do is start thinking about how do you link those things together? Because if someone needs to meet with you, needs a proposal, needs all that information, don't wait until after the call to start creating a template for your proposal. Create them in advance. Understand what templates and marketing materials you need. Understand when you do these discovery calls, especially if you've done a few of them, what are some common steps in the process that you need to have prepared, whether it's invoicing templates, whether it's contracts that need to be written up, and it can just be a boilerplate contract, whether it's how you do kickoff meetings and communication, whether it's even the brochures that you put together. Like this is an example of one of the brochures that we use. Because once you start to turn it into a system, sometimes the anxiety that you're feeling around sales is because you're not sure what the next step is in the process. And therefore, you feel like you're always reactionary. You're responding to the customer. What do they need? Should I send a proposal? Should I send this? Should I follow up? And what I'd rather you do is sit down and say, what is my sales process? What do I do when someone jumps on my website and wants to book with me and they book? What happens next? And starting to write that down and document it. And I'm going to even talk about it when we get to the discovery call phase about some of the things I do in discovery calls to help with that. But the key here is writing that down. Now, jumping back to my retail folks or my class folks or my event folks, I want you to really think about these live Q&As. They can be really so much fun. And don't worry if you don't have a ton of people on the call. I think sometimes when we're doing sessions, we want to be inundated with people. We want to have just a room fill. And remember, we're trying to create customers here. So the idea is, number one, I need you to work on your technique. And I'd rather you work on your technique with 4 people on a call, get really good. And then when you have 50 people on a call, you're ready. Then wait until you get those 50 or those 100 and you haven't gotten enough practice to manage that call. So don't be worried about how many people are showing up in the beginning. Really focus in on getting good at the technique of answering people's questions and doing things like showing your product or service, helping people see it, helping people see what you do and how you do it, and making sure you use this opportunity to not be so pushy. You don't have to say, you're not on QVC as an example, and you're like, all right, we got 20 left, and make sure you dial that number below. I'm not asking you to be that. Remember I said, be you, put your personality into it. And what's nice about a live call or Q&A call is people can just ask questions, or even if they're not asking that many questions, you can answer common questions. Many of us create FAQs on our website all the time. Use your FAQs to guide your live Q&A and start with those first and then open it up to questions. So if you're nervous that, what if I ask if there's any questions and there are no questions? Just be prepared and bring your standard FAQs, because for many people, it's helpful for them to see it. They may not have read it on your website. And you can give it a little bit more flair to it when you teach it or talk about it than if you had simply told people, go to my website and read it. Okay? So let's talk about the discovery call. How many of you guys are using discovery calls? Just drop it in the chat for me and let me know if yes, you're using them, no, you're not using them, or if it doesn't work for your business, that's fine as well. Because I know for some people, if you're doing retail or if you're doing courses, it is a little bit different. But as you drop them in, nice. Okay. I want to talk about how to make a discovery call impactful. And the reason I want to bring this up, because the discovery call is a time where you have somebody on the actual phone and you can get them to say yes. This can be a magical moment. And for some of us, we struggle. We get a little nervous. We're not sure what to say. We haven't structured the call well. And what I want to do is give you a couple of tips so that if you're going into a discovery call soon or adding a discovery call to your process, these are some of the things I want you to think about. So, number 1, send a survey. This is something we've started to do recently, which has been I need to stop saying recently. I've been doing this for a couple of months, but and it's been working really well. But we started to do it ourselves. I had a couple of clients do it, and they had some great results. And then, as usual, I'm like, wait a minute, I need to put this into my process too. And it's been wonderful because what we used to do is have people book a discovery call with me. Then I'd get on the call and we'd have to start from zero. I had to figure out what their issue was, what's their challenge, what they need. And what I found is by sending them a questionnaire. Now, when I say it's a questionnaire, this is like 4 questions, 5 questions. But by sending them this information before my discovery call, not only can they complete the information and I can read it in advance, I didn't have to use that like 20 minutes or that short amount of time that I have on getting up to speed quickly. I could be already up to speed before I get into the call. I can have a sense of, can I help them or not? And it's so important to know that as soon as possible on a discovery call. And the reason being is if you can't help a person, there's nothing wrong with that. The call can go in a different direction. You can recommend them to someone else. You can recommend them to some free content. But if you can help them, you want to know quickly what that service is going to be. And the sooner you have the information you need to make that call, the better the discovery call can be. So think about putting a question in a survey in place in advance. And like I said, it should be really short. It's questions like, what's one of your biggest challenges right now? Have you tried to address that challenge and had struggled with it before? So you know if a person's tried to do it and where they're having problems. You can ask people questions like, what do you want to get out of the discovery call? Because sometimes people are like, oh, I just want ideas. And sometimes people will say, I really want to work with you, but I don't know how. Or I want to get started, but I'm not sure which product or service is right for me. Knowing that in the beginning of a call is great because it's a very different call when someone's like, I'm ready. I just don't know what direction to go. So if you can gather some of that information, that can help. Yes. When I do my pre-discovery calls, I use a form. So I use a tool called Honeybook. Honeybook is the software that I use, and Honeybook has a questionnaire in it that will actually be emailed out. And then when a person fills out that information, it actually registers and pulls it into Honeybook. Honeybook's pretty reasonable if you want to start with it for like, I think the first 6 months. I think it's like $9 a month or something like that. So it's pretty reasonable. If you don't want to incur that cost, then what you can do is use any type of survey tool. You can use a Google form if you want to do it, especially if you're not asking any proprietary information. But that can be a great way for you to gather that information. Okay. The other thing is I want to make sure that when you're in a call with people, you have to ask them for the sale. And when I say that, for some of us, it's hard to say, do you want to buy? That doesn't roll off our tongues well. So what I tell a lot of people is to ask a very simple question like, would you like to work together? Because that's not as confrontational. It doesn't sound like, do you have a credit card in front of you? It doesn't sound so salesy at times, but it's a great question because people can say yes to it. They can say, yes, I do want to work with you. Or someone can say, I'm not ready yet. And it can be a way that you can kind of tackle a conversation that might feel like, how do I enter into this? How do I ask it? By using a question like that. The other thing is, we talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to stress it here for the discovery call, is make sure you have your brochure and your sales materials ready. Because if you're going to get on a discovery call with someone and say they ask about your products and services, instead of you saying, this product is 500 and that product is, because you're trying to remember it. For many of us, it's not like you remember all the bullet points on your sales page. So what I tell people is, number one, have your sales page open before you have a discovery call. Number two, if you have a brochure or sales material put in a nice format, pull up that document. Because if the conversation goes there during the call, share your screen and say, you know what, let me pull it up so we can walk through it together. I'll send you this information after the call, but let me show it to you. Now, I don't mean you do this unprompted. This is if someone starts asking questions about it. Instead of you trying to remember it on the fly, or instead of you like looking down your desk to walk somebody through it, pull it up, and make sure you can discuss it in the call. I think it's a great way to make it a more natural experience to walk through it together than for you to feel like you have to sell it or pitch it to that person. If you have a proposal that you prepared in advance or a concept of what you'd like to do with someone, get on the call and pull those things up. All right. The other thing that comes up a lot of times in discovery calls is a lot of people have difficulty asking about price, bringing up those numbers. And one thing that I found has worked well is instead of asking people, are you ready to buy? Especially when you have to say the price, is often if I have multiple packages, I'll ask people, I'll say, this is my product or service. Oh, hey, Angela, no worries. It's glad to see you here. One thing that I say to people is say to someone, is that in your price range? Say, you know what, I have this service and it cost about $800. Is that in your price range? And that way you don't have to say, is it too expensive? Is it too high? Is it too low? Like you don't want to get into that because it's a different mindset. But by asking someone who's in their price range, it gives them an opportunity to say, yes, maybe, I think so. And that way it can open the door to a conversation about a product that maybe is higher or lower. Because sometimes I ask people and they say it's in their price range. And then I ask, well, do you want more one-on-one time or do you think that's enough? Because if my package includes, let's say, 2 meetings a month, and I ask someone, is that in your price range? And they go, yes. And I go, is that enough support or would you like more? Because I do have another package, but I wasn't sure if you wanted more support or if that's right. And I'm showing you this or recommending this or saying this because the more you get comfortable with that language that you use in these calls, the easier it will be to convert. The other thing we already talked about is a post-discovery call process. We talked earlier about making sure you book that next meeting if you need that, or if you are having a discovery call, always think about what's your process. If I send people a proposal after it, do I follow up 2 days later, 3 days later? If I'm going to follow up, am I going to send a video? Just like Stephanie recommended earlier, that Loom video, I send a video out to follow up with them. We want to make sure that the post-discovery call has the attention and process and structure in place to make sure you can convert them. And then the last thing I just want to recommend before we break up and go back into my Zoom session and I answer your questions. So if you have some questions, get them ready because I'm about to come back into our Zoom session and make sure I answer them for you. But the last thing I like to recommend to people is we often think about our current discovery call slate. We think about the calls that are coming up or the people we've talked to in the last month. But for any of you who've been in business for a while, or for any of you who've been doing discovery calls for a while, even if it's for the last 3 months, 4 months, what happens is some of us forget to loop back to those previous calls. Some of those people, something came up, something happened, and something that maybe was outside of your process and maybe has nothing to do with what you offered them, meaning they had to prepare for a wedding, in a family, and therefore that took their attention away from moving forward. Maybe they switched jobs. I mean, there's just so much going on in life these days that often we think the reason someone didn't buy is because they didn't like our product or service. And I need you to readjust that thinking and realize that sometimes the timing isn't right. There are people who are ready to buy today, and there are people that are ready to buy 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, even 2 years later. So I bring that up to say, if you need to drive sales now, look at those individuals that you've talked to in the last year. Track those calls as you move forward and you meet with people, even if they don't turn to customers right away. Regroup and come back to them a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, and see if you can help them. Because by revisiting those previous calls, those people you've talked to before, many of those people might not have said yes before, but they might be a yes now. And they might not have really said no before. They just kind of fell off the radar. So I do want to make sure that you don't forget that there's opportunities sometimes with the people that you talked to in the past, and you can turn them into customers as well. All right. So those are all my slides for today. All my folks that are hanging out with me in social media, thank you for joining live. Thank you for hanging out. If you have any questions, I only got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to use some of that time in our Zoom session because I want to make sure everyone gets their questions answered there. But if you are hanging out in our Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, please, please, please post your questions, comments, or anything there. I will check them out after this and make sure I respond because I definitely want to make sure that you have everything you need so you can go out there and drive sales. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. I love, love, love connecting with people, seeing what everyone's up to, and also checking out your profile and seeing what's happening in your business. So I invite everyone to do that. Now, my folks in Zoom, hang tight if you have time. I'm going to come back to you and answer questions. I'm just going to say a quick goodbye to everyone on social media. So I'll see you later at my social media family. And I will see everyone in the Zoom session in about a second.